Welcome to this episode of the GymInformer podcast. I'm Chris Gilbert, your host for this episode. And today our guest is Ken McQueen, the owner of Kaged Barbell down in Eastern Kentucky. I got a chance to go to two of his gyms not just this past summer. They were very cool gyms, two very unique facilities, which isn't very often when you go to places that one gym owner owns and they're so unique. So I'm excited to talk to them about how they created such unique facilities. But before we get started, let me show you the photos so you can see what we're talking about. All right, Ken, I'm excited to talk to you about the gyms, but before we get into talking about them, what was your path? Like, how did you become a gym owner?
So coming from a really small place in Eastern Kentucky, you always kind of look around to see what's available and what's out there. For me, at one point in my life, I weighed almost 500 pounds.
Wow.
Health was just not an object. It was not a thing. And I just wanted a life change. And, for me, I was fortunate enough to go to college. A lot of people don't have that opportunity. And I fell in love with the gym, the atmosphere, everything about it, just how amazing and huge. Now, looking back, was it huge? Maybe not, but back then it was a lot bigger. The problem is all of the weight equipment was on the second floor. My first workouts were figuring out how I could muster the strength to walk up the stairs to get to the weight equipment. After doing that, I kind of lost a lot of weight. I got down to about 250 pounds.
Wow.
Started working out and wanted to be a bodybuilder. And the thing is back then I didn't know a whole lot of stuff, and so I was just kind of like craving knowledge and looking. So I reached out. I found a bodybuilding coach about an hour away from where I was. Met with the guy, and tough love. So when you lose a lot of weight, you have a lot of excess skin. It's part of the process. And so this guy, he was like, "Man, you've done tremendous work. I can tell your heart's in this. You love this, but you're probably not going to place in the shows that you want to place in. I can't take your money." And that was like heartbreaking, because I had put in so much work and so much effort, and was like, "Oh my God, I don't know what I'm going to do now." So anyway, there was a joke. He was like, "Hey, I heard you're pretty strong. Can you bench press?" And I was like, "Well, yeah." And he's like, "Well, how much?" Everyone lies. Everyone lies. And I told him as much as I could on that day. And so I went back with this knowledge and was like, okay, so it's not hopeless for me. It's something I can do. And I found a small gym in the town that I was living in at the time, and walked in and said, "How do I become a trainer? How do I help people do what I do, give them some of that tough love, and see if we can't change their lives?" And after doing that, working on the commercial side of a training, sales, general management, I just got a passion for it. But in those big box gyms, they don't necessarily care about passion; they care about dollars and cents.
Right.
And I thought, I want to do this differently. I want to be a gym owner one day. I want to figure out life. But for now, I'm an athlete. I'm a lifter. And through some, hard lessons I learned, I got hurt and put all of the lifting to the side for about 10 years.
Wow.
And yeah, and then I kind of got to that low point in life and thought, okay, when was I happiest? And I kind of was thinking back, I was happiest that first day I walked into that big gym and I saw all of this, opportunity. They always say, it's about the journey, not the destination.
100%.
And I thought, okay, maybe I'm never going to be a world record holding lifter again. I'm not going to get a medal on stage. Mr. Olympia was never going to happen for me. But maybe I could help create an environment for the next generation. And that is why I became a gym owner. Because I realized that I couldn't build myself anymore to the way I wanted, but maybe I could help build my community.
Oh, that's super cool. I love that. Very inspiring. Yeah, it's kind of how, I don't know if you know my story at all, but that's kind of part of my story was I was 300 pounds. That's not 500, but so hats off to you. but I was 300 pounds, thought I was going to die because I was so heavy. Kept going to corporate gyms. I kept quitting because it was so miserable to work out there. Finally went to a locally owned gym, became a part of the family, and lost 70 pounds in 1 year. And
Yeah,
then
yeah,
and
that's how it goes, man.
that's why I
That's how
started
it
doing
is.
this. So I felt like a locally owned gym helped save my life, and I wanted to give something back to the industry that gave a lot to me. So
Yeah, so you get
very
it.
cool.
I mean, that's
Yeah, totally.
basically how it starts, and I think that's kind of one of those cool things about how we find ourselves in these positions.
Oh, 100%. Yeah, very much. So you've got two gyms right now.
Hmm.
I got a chance to go to both of them.
Yeah.
Let's talk about, normally I like to talk about equipment first, but let's talk about atmosphere first, because I
Yeah.
don't think we can even get into the equipment until we talk about the two vastly different atmospheres of these two gyms.
Yeah.
One's very much an old school, gritty, like bodybuilding / powerlifting gym. And one's kind of a new school, very clean, very like, I don't want to call it soccer mom, because it's not a soccer mom gym, but it's a gym that a soccer mom would walk into and go, okay, I can work out here.
Hmm.
Someone very fresh would be not intimidated by the second gym at all. It's still got lots of equipment and still a nice place to work out, but it was entirely different.
Yeah.
Like, what was the thought process? Did you guys create those two different things on purpose? Did it just happen that way, or?
I would love to be able to tell you yes, that was the plan. We executed it perfectly. But no, that's not the plan at all, actually. So, how that all came about is the best way I can describe it is I grew up with muscle magazines. I
Mm-hmm.
grew up looking at all of these really cool like advertisements from Animal back in the day. Those black and white
Yeah.
op-eds that they would do, and then Pumping Iron was the only video of anyone ever working out. Those old Gold's Gyms, and I thought, yeah, I want to create that. Then you see
Mm-hmm.
some videos from VHS tapes from like West Side Barbell, and I was like, yeah, I want to create that. I want to do
Mm-hmm.
that. And then I kind of remembered, where did I have my best workouts? Because if I'm going to sink everything I have into something, I've got to enjoy being there myself.
Mm-hmm.
And hopefully, there are a few other people out there that want to join with me.
Right.
And so we started out in what used to be a fish store. And it was
Okay.
very apparent that it used to be a fish store.
Okay.
So you can imagine everything that goes along with being in a fish store. We had 3 pieces of equipment and 4 guys. So we were all doing bench press, we were all doing squat, we were all doing deadlift. That's just what it was. And then someone had the idea to buy dumbbells. And so we kind of built on that. And then we started thinking about, okay, well, this is really cool. And then we started hearing about this thing called TikTok. And these younger kids were coming in and bringing in tripods and cameras. And to me, it was foreign. Like, I didn't understand it at first.
Mm-hmm.
But then I realized that I was the youngest of that original crew, being in my mid 30s.
Right.
The way that we are doing things isn't going to last forever. We are
Mm-hmm.
building gyms for a generation that won't be gymming very much longer, at least in that capacity. So I thought, okay, how do we introduce a new generation to what we're trying to do?
Mm-hmm.
Taking these lessons that I've learned from the original guys, the old school guys, and how can I help be a bridge between that powerlifting gritty that we had from back in the day to this more aesthetic, clean version, because it is a little different. So we got this great idea, and I started thinking I need help with this. So I had a business partner come in. His name's Dan, great guy. He's a little bit younger than me and has a little bit different field of thought. And we thought, okay, if we could have a community of both styles of lifters where they can be cohesive, the old school guys and the new guys, how do we do that?
Right.
So we thought about what we could do. Well, where we're located at, there's a lot of fitness operations. There's one for everybody. And that's
Mm-hmm.
just the truth. And it's a wonderfully small community. But we thought, what can we do different? So we decided to not try to shove it all into one building and take pieces and parts, but to be geographically close enough to offer 2 facilities.
Mm-hmm.
and based on where they're at. So where Kaged Barbell originated is kind of on that old school end of town, the more industrial end, the more commercial end, where the other location is kind of in that new suburban area with the new build outs, and that's where all of that's coming. So we
Okay.
got in there early. It's kind of funny. The community, all of the housing units were built around the gym. We were there first.
Nice.
So when you said soccer mom, we kind of joke about that a little bit internally because all there was a field there. We were the first unit there
Nice.
in that space. So to tell you the truth, the idea came from who we have coming into our gyms.
Right. So it was on purpose.
Yeah, it really was. You know, after we kind of sat down and thought about it, we thought, how can we bridge the gap between the two different generations, the two lifting communities? Like you said, you know, bodybuilders and powerlifters can work really well together.
Mm-hmm.
But how do we show people that these big tough guys, these big tough girls aren't tough at all? They're actually just in there seeking self-improvement. How can we get more people to glance over? Because for me, I didn't start out in a rough and tumble gym. You know, I was terrified. The only thing I could do was the pec deck. You know, we kind of joke I got really good at hugging after a while. That's the only machine I fit in.
Yeah.
You know, and I remember how scary it was to like say, "Hey, I think I want to do that. What is that called?" And like, "Oh, that's called deadlifting." Well, that's a terrible name.
Mm-hmm.
That's an awful name. I don't want to deadlift.
Right.
So we kind of just thought about it. How can we appeal to two different sides of the coin and bridge the gap?
Nice. So now if we switch to equipment in that old school gym, there's some really cool pieces. Like, how did you decide what was going to go in there?
So luckily for me, as the owner, I got to pick every single piece in there. Every piece was handpicked. A lot of them came from the same distributor. We literally drove down to Maryville, Tennessee, to Dynabody one night, and I was like, "I want that. I want that." I sat on every machine. I pushed on every machine, and it was kind of funny. Heavy, if you ever get a chance to meet him, he sat down with me and talked about me about what I needed.
Mm-hmm.
And some of the pieces that you noticed they had McQueen power on some of the stickers there, those were pieces that were kind of formed around me just a little bit. Our
Nice.
leg extension is a little wider, so some different things like that. And whenever it came to high sidebar stuff, we tried to get that to where you could fit because a lot of bigger guys, even in shape guys, they have a wider lat spread. So we tried to have some equipment that was designed just a little bit more bowed out. But that's kind of how we did that. Some other stuff were just some really unique pieces that I saw. We have a really old school Nautilus peg deck that I absolutely love. There's a leg press that when we came across it, I was like, we have to have this. I don't care what we have to do. I don't care where we have to put it. We are having this. And you
Yeah.
got to remember, this is when we were in our original location of 1,300 square feet.
Wow.
So the location you visited was our part two, and that was like 3,200 square foot, I believe. So it was tight, but that was what was so cool. People would walk into this little space and see all these big things, and that was one of the things we were most proud of for that first location. It was just that old school stuff, and realistically, we don't have a lot of new stuff in there. Everything's fairly well maintained, but it gives kind of like a peek back to that old school mentality.
No, it was cool. Yeah, I liked it. I actually walked in and I was like, oh, like this is kind of badass.
Yeah, well, we appreciate it.
No, I love old school gyms. Don't get me wrong, I love new school gyms too, but like old school gyms are so much harder to create because you can't just go buy those pieces. You have to hunt them down and find them.
Yeah, it was crazy. There is a tricep dip plate loaded hammer strength piece that we have, and I literally called my wife and was like, "Hey, there's things in the back of my truck. Don't worry about it. I promise it will be worth it." And so I'm driving and I'm unloading it. So I call some of the guys from the gym and I'm like, "Hey, I got this piece." And these kids, I mean, they're in their 20s, are like, "What is that?" And so I'm like, "Let me explain. Let me show you." And literally now they are bringing people to come look at these crazy pieces of equipment that we have.
Nice.
It's just the funniest thing because I always thought that, the equipment made the gym, and the newest equipment is what sold the gym, is what I always thought. And I'm not going to, brand bash by any means, but I was dead set on a certain very popular brand and thought, if I can't have that popular brand, my gym will fail.
Mm-hmm.
And I also love visiting gyms like yourself. I travel, and I have been to 6 different gyms that all have the same equipment in the exact same layout and feel. And there's nothing wrong with that. But if you want to go to one of these gyms, you could go to 6 different ones. But there is only one little Kaged Barbell in existence with those exact pieces. And I
Yeah.
think that's kind of cool. Like yourself, I like finding those odd pieces.
And I say all the time, I'm like, that equipment might get someone in your gym, but the atmosphere is going to keep them there.
Yeah, that's, the thing is, and this is going to sound crazy to probably most gym owners. I can remember and count every cancellation we've had in the last 3 years.
Wow.
And when you remove, oh, I moved because I graduated college or I had a baby, then you're looking at 8 cancellations.
Wow.
Now, that's not saying we have a million members, because we don't. But we have 8 people that we have actually lost contact with in some form or fashion.
But so the people who come to your gym stay in your gyms.
Yes, sir. So it's kind of funny. We do a 0-1 through barcode system. We are now on barcode number 131, which includes some family memberships. So there's actually more people than that. But we have not lost anybody in those single digits since we first opened our doors.
Wow. That's impressive. That says a lot about your atmosphere and your culture.
Yeah, and it's not me. I wish I could say, oh yeah, I cracked the code on this, but I didn't. It's a guy named Ethan. It's a guy named Roman. It's a guy named Trace. It's a guy named Luke. It's a guy named Jordy. They figured out how to make our gym work. It's a friendly environment, man. That's all.
But don't give away all the credit. I can assure you, having been to the gyms that I've been to, that gym owners set the culture and the members keep it running.
We joke that I'm the gym dad. Every gym needs a gym dad and a gym mom.
Mm-hmm.
We have very few rules at our gym. If you walk in, you don't see rules on the board. There are some general guidelines. Obviously, don't let people in you don't know, and some just different stuff. Sign a waiver, because we don't want anybody getting hurt and us getting sued. Just being honest, but our rules are simple. No BS. Period.
Mm-hmm.
There have been 2 locations of those 8, like I mentioned, where I have said, hey, come talk to me outside real quick. So we walk outside and I said, hey, whatever you're doing, saying yada, 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 stop. We don't need your $35.
Right.
We're a club. We're not a business. I know that sounds kind of silly. We are a club first. We have canceled memberships just because of outside things. One of the unique things about our gym is, for a lot of our members, we are an additional membership. All of the surrounding gyms have contracts. We are the only non-contracted option. You are literally month to month.
Awesome.
And since, I personally know just about every member's name, just because we're kind of small, you can text me and we'll cancel it right there.
Mm-hmm.
So with that being said, we are a family first. We don't want someone saying negative things about anyone else, and we don't keep members that are causing problems.
Right.
That's not what we're doing.
That's how you keep all the members.
Yeah, and it's really strange. We've created a very unique atmosphere where we had a gentleman come in. He signed up online. He walked in the door, and you can kind of see in the camera, and it's kind of funny how it worked out. He spent about 35 seconds in our gym, texted us, and was like, hey, this is it, question mark. You look so much bigger online, but this is all you have. And we said, hey, man, yeah, feel free to check it out. If it's not for you, don't worry about it. We will actually give you a full refund at the end of the month. Just don't be so harsh on the first day. You don't know what kind of gyms are in there.
Mm-hmm.
And literally his billing came due, and we just messaged, hey, man, notice you haven't been in the gym. We hope everything is okay. Here's your money back. If you'd like to come back and give us another shot, here we are. And, I don't know how many gyms do that, at least in the corporate.
Oh, yeah, definitely not.
We rather have people coming to the gym than not.
Oh, yeah.
I think it's kind of funny. We have like this unspoken policy that if we don't see you for a month or two, we call, not to collect money, but mostly just to make sure you're okay.
Yeah. I mean, that's what small locally owned gyms are all about. I mean,
Yeah.
I was just talking to a gym owner in Chicago,
Mhm.
and I'm sure she wouldn't mind, but it was, it's one of the most legendary gyms in the country.
Mhm.
And her and I were talking about how gyms are more than just a place where people work out. They're a community, and they provide a mental stability, and they provide a lot more to people than just a place to work out and a place to get physically fit. And when I left, she said, "You know what? I was thinking about that conversation you and I had, and there was a member, I hadn't seen him in a while, so I called him, and he told me just the fact that I cared enough to call a lot gave him the energy to get out of bed and come to the gym because he was in
Yeah.
such a bad mental state."
Oh,
Like,
man.
like that's the kind of
Absolutely.
that's the kind of stuff that like gyms do for people, and owners who care do for people, and that's why locally owned gyms are always going to beat corporate gyms
Yeah.
for anybody who finds them.
I fully agree. It's like we're not going to have 100 treadmills. We're not. We're not going to try to win the treadmill war. We're not going to have the broadest, fanciest equipments. We're not going to have everything that everyone needs until they realize what they do need. It's kind of heavy. Down at Dynabody once told me, when you're building a gym, people only notice what you don't have.
Mm-hmm.
And so never take that hard, because you're going to find a way to provide something no one else can.
Mm-hmm.
And I think that's kind of where it goes. And what's funny with that is switching from our old school location that you visited to our second location, which is newer and has all the new equipment. We are building an entirely different culture there as well. So we have those guys who need that 4-day-a-week check-in for mental health. It's just the
Yeah.
truth. We have that. We have that place where you can come in, sit on the futon, drink an energy drink, do all your cardio by running your mouth, and not actually touch a weight, and go home and still feel better, because that's really why we should all be doing this. Our
Right.
second location, if you are determined, if you are stepping on stage in 6 weeks and you need those posing classes, you need that tied in thing, you want to bump shoulders with an IFBB pro or an elite level power lifter, but you only have 30 minutes, that's where that location comes into play too.
Mm-hmm.
So that second location we made, kind of does have that commercial gym feel and that aesthetic to it, but it's backed by the heart of what we started, just a few miles north.
I wouldn't call it a commercial gym. I wouldn't call it a commercial gym feel at all. Like, I wouldn't sell yourself short.
Well, I
Like,
appreciate that. Well, thank you. I appreciate that.
yeah. There was nothing generic about it.
Okay, cool.
I mean, it was new and it was clean, but it wasn't generic. Like,
Cool. I appreciate that. I really do.
Yeah.
Was
Now,
when we were putting that together, we thought, how do we take what we're doing and translate it to a new generation?
yeah. Now, was it smaller than the first one?
Yes, sir. So the illusion is the height.
Mm-hmm.
On paper, it is 2,400 square foot.
Okay, yeah. I thought it was a pretty small gym, but it was well laid out, so it doesn't feel small. You had some really high level powerlifting equipment. I think it was Rogue that was in there, right?
Yes, sir.
And then all of your accessory equipment was from a brand that I know you told me they were from Texas,
Yep.
but I'd never seen them before. So what made you guys go with that company for all your accessory equipment?
It was almost an accident. So when we first started looking at equipment, we were very specific on the aesthetic. It had to be black on black with an accent of silver.
Mm-hmm.
So when we set across that, and then to kind of subcategorize that, we wanted the heaviest weight stacks as possible.
Mm-hmm.
So
And
we used
that company? Which brand is it again?
Bolt
Okay,
Fitness.
cool. I
Yep.
couldn't
So
remember
we
that.
started looking at all of these different equipments available to us. And the unique thing about Kentucky is we are not a port city.
Right.
So we do not have a ton of distributors.
Right.
We can't go to these places that, can sell you 15 power racks because they ordered 30 of them and they're just sitting at port. So we had to kind of look different. So we looked at all of the places out of Tennessee because there's a ton. There's a ton
Yeah.
of options in Tennessee, which I find amazing.
Mm-hmm.
But not a single company out of Tennessee could match our aesthetic, the weight capacity we wanted, and then ultimately the budget we had in mind.
Right.
It came down to a 1, 2, and 3.
Mm-hmm.
So when we started doing this, I started scouring the internet for equipment providers.
Mm-hmm.
We built out some different, I guess the best way I can do is catalogs, some product guides that we wanted.
Right.
And then we started saying, hey, we're a small startup gym working on our second location. Here's our budget. Here's our square footage. Are we someone you guys want to work with? So Bolt Fitness reached out to my business partner and was like, hey, we want to fly you out here. We want to introduce ourselves. We want to earn your business. And that's kind of how that relationship started.
Very cool.
So he went down there and he started looking at all of the different equipments that we had. And then we started looking at the space we had and how could we maximize that. And that's kind of where it came down. We probably drew out, I would say 50 to 60 different layouts of that gym.
Yeah.
And the idea of that second location was always to step into other units as we expanded our business operation. So that's a really cool thing down there. We still have the option to eventually get more units of space
Mm-hmm.
as we go. So we wanted to get the core equipment, and that's what we
Right.
call it. You can provide that really nice rogue version of a powerlifting setup, and then you have that very nice selector equipment to kind of make through. We were even able to incorporate some turf, which I think was a stroke of genius on my business partner's part, because I would have never thought of that and how to best put that in. And
Yeah, the
then
turf was nice. It changed it definitely made it have a drastically different feel than your other gym.
Yeah, it's kind of funny when we first were looking at that unit, we were like, okay, so how do we meet our coding? So for where that's located, 2 bathrooms are required. And so how do we split that space for the square footage? How do we design this to meet all of those regulations? Because it was a shell when we got there.
Yeah.
Learned a lot about drywall, learned a lot about roofing. We installed the HVAC. Learned a lot about regulations and coding and all of that. So, as an owner, I can honestly say I physically built the gyms that you walked into.
That's impressive.
I painted every wall. I laid every ceiling tile. I put every piece of floor down with my partner. We glued every piece of turf. So,
Wow.
it's kind of funny, speaking of the building of the gyms, and I think sometimes we miss that. The flooring, man, the rubber flooring. Every single one of those mats weighs 96 pounds. Every single one of those mats was purchased locally from Tractor Supply and delivered on the back of my truck.
Wow.
So when you say, we built a gym, we built a gym
Yeah.
because everything we've done up to this point has been self-funded. It's out of the 9 to 5s that, my family has.
Right.
So when we were building that atmosphere down there, we really, truly tried to give that community everything we could.
That's awesome. Yeah, I mean, it was a very aesthetically nice looking gym. So
we definitely appreciate that. We put a lot of heart and soul into it.
nice. So at this point, we've talked a lot about like what you guys are doing well.
Mm-hmm.
Is there a thing or something you feel like that you wish you were doing better?
Yeah. So being a very small gym, I wish that we had the capability to reach out to more people.
Mm-hmm. So like sales?
Yeah, but I don't want to call it sales because I
Right.
don't really care if we make money or not.
Okay.
And I know that sounds silly. Our financial goal is break even. I do not want to profit from it. We don't care about that. And I know that, banks and stuff don't want to hear that. So that's kind of why we've had to stay self-funded. I wish we could invite more people to what we're doing. I wish we had the capability to unify more people. Right now in the world, it seems, there's a lot of turmoil, and that is even affecting sports like powerlifting. There's a lot of federations. I can't name them all anymore. I can't name, a raw elite, raw classic, geared, non-geared, tested, non-tested. There's all these vernaculars.
Right.
And every one of these people want to lift under their own flag. And that's awesome. That's great. That creates a really cool competition environment. That creates all kinds of these things. But I think somewhere down the line, we've gotten so fractured that it's hurting us all. So what I wish we could do a better job of is somehow opening our doors to everyone, and showing people that, hey, there's old school lifting, there's new school lifting, but just come lift. Don't worry about the federations. Don't worry about if you're an elite total. It's really crazy at our locations. We even brought in kilo plates and specialty bars and all of that because we had one single member that competed with kilos.
Wow.
So I wish that we were able to just bring more people in, not for the sales, but more for the introduction to what we're doing.
Just to build the family bigger.
Just to build the family bigger, because it's sad. I don't want to see powerlifting die. I don't.
Yeah.
I can't tell you the last time that a major meet was held locally. I can't tell you the last time that you bumped into a bunch of powerlifters on the street. It's one of those things. We just want to kind of open our doors. Another thing for me is I feel that we have never finished our gyms. So I kind of joke that when someone comes into our gyms, hey, our gym's 60% done. Please don't judge us too hard. You walk into Kaged Barbell 1 ASF, North location, you're going to see some missing drywall. You're going to see some nail holes. You're going to see, some pieces where the rubber isn't exactly glued down all the way. You're going to see a tear in some of the vinyl on the equipment. You are. But you're also going to, see a 17-year-old in the corner who is there every night at 2 a.m. because he has a terrible home life and has nowhere else to go. And I wish that we had the ability to just welcome all of them and say, hey, don't worry about the membership. You're safe here.
Yeah.
I wish we could provide every single thing our members need to feel good, to feel happy, to feel safe. And that's just kind of where it's at, man. I wish we could provide that dream gym and worry about the money. I feel bad when, we have someone's membership fail and I have to call them because that one membership is the difference between, paying the light bill or not.
Yeah.
I hate it. And that's where we're terrible. I'm awful at that. I get fussed at all the time by my partners because I won't collect or I'll just pay it out of my pocket.
Yeah.
I only make so many dollars a month too,
Right. Yep.
Yeah.
Yeah, you got it. There's got to be a balance. You've got the heart, obviously. You've got the passion, So, and I think people will see that and people will find that and it'll grow.
Yeah, but that's kind of what I wish we could do better. I wish we could just do more.
Yeah, that's awesome. So let's talk about the future of Kaged Barbell. So right now you've got 2 locations. I heard rumor that there's going to be a third one.
Yes, that's kind of where we're at right now. So we have been really quiet. And if you know me in the personal life, I love to talk. I'm a big personality. So me being quiet is not easy. I'm actually in our third location right now, just to kind of give a sneak peek to the internet. So if you took both of our previous locations and put them into one building, this would still be larger. The future of Kaged Barbell is a third location in Winchester, Kentucky, and it right now stands at about 7,000 plus square feet. We are trying to take both of those atmospheres that we've created in Madison County, Kentucky, and do that crazy thing of putting them together. We have already had some commitment on a powerlifting meet to be hosted here later this year. The last time that this meet was hosted in the same city, it had over 250 lifters.
Wow.
So we are working through a federation, and I can't really give out a whole lot of details, but we are trying to make it as cost effective for lifters as possible.
That's awesome.
Because we have the space and we're donating it.
Nice.
So there's no fee to the federations for that. We're just trying to do what we can for our community. But yeah, the future for us is bright.
No, that's super awesome.
We are hoping that we can show this community this whole type of lifestyle. For here where we're at currently, there is one Globo gym. There's one, and they're one of those gyms that doesn't have any free weight. There is a couple private personal trainers who do their own thing, and I think they do an amazing job. But as far as that open-based community, it doesn't currently exist in any form that we've been able to find.
Yeah.
So we're hoping that we can, have this little stretch of the world and introduce, pretty much the focal point of the Appalachian area in Kentucky to what we're trying to do.
That's awesome. Very cool. So when will the third gym be open? Is there a date, target date?
I can't open it soon enough. For me, I'm going to open it now. But, this is kind of the vulnerability here that you may not see. Right now, I don't know where the money for the equipment's coming from.
Mm-hmm.
Being small, we are maxed out financially.
Right.
We have been turned down for 3 different finance companies. 2 different banks have said no. So right now I'm banking on a bonus check from work.
Wow.
We're looking at taking our PTO and cashing it out. We're looking at, pulling from our retirements. It's like people only want to celebrate their wins. And I've seen on TikTok, all of these gym owners talking about, make 50 grand in 1 week, sign up here, you'll get 600 members in a month if you pay us this $1,000 fee, all these things, but that's not really how it goes,
No, it's not really at all.
It's not. You see these transformation videos where they flash, and you got a barren landscape. They flash, you got tile and ceilings. You flash, and then it's full of equipment. Then you flash, and it's got like 60 people in there. I don't know how they do that so quickly. But then I realized it's not in real time. They're not showing you the struggles. It's kind of crazy. So when we came across this building is one of my favorite stories. So we were driving past looking, just kind of getting to know the areas. We came across this building. It had this big for lease sign in it. And I'm optimistic. I literally drive anywhere and think, oh, man, that'd be a good gym. Oh, man, that'd be a cool gym. And my wife, she's like, no. And so I'm like, okay, whatever. So we're driving here. I don't even remember why we're in town, to be honest, at this point. We were driving, and we pull in, and I see a for lease sign, I got to pretend I'm not interested. So I look over, and I'm like, oh, that building's for rent. That's cool. But secretly, I'm like, oh, my God, are we checking out a gym? So then my wife walks up to the window, peers in, and is like, it's perfect. And I'm like, what do you mean it's perfect? And she's like, it's perfect. And so we peek in and we're like, oh my gosh, it's perfect. We have to do whatever we have to do to at least get this space.
Yeah, so she didn't want it to be perfect.
I didn't either. Neither one of us did. But we came here and saw this space and was like, that is everything I've dreamed of for the last 12 years.
Yeah.
That is exactly what I want to be in. I want to be in a large commercial space in a downtown area with a community that needs it.
Mm-hmm.
We're not in a highfalutin area. We're kind of in a poverty-stricken area. There's a couple, crises happening, homelessness, etc. But, sometimes those places don't get anything good.
Right.
We saw a community that needed us, a space that could have us, and a community that we've, has been around town, and they're like, oh my gosh, we need that.
Mm-hmm.
And so we started figuring out every single thing we could to make this happen.
That's awesome.
So right now we are literally building this on faith.
Wow.
Because I don't know where the equipment's coming. I don't know. We have three power racks that was left over from one of our other gyms that we decided not to use.
All right.
We've got a friend who is donating a few bars. I've got a floor with rubber on it so we could deadlift.
It's a start.
And so it's like, it's kind of one of those things, man. So what's the future for us? I don't know, but we're going to try to grow into it.
That's awesome.
We're going to do everything we can, and we are literally going to be one of those gyms who are going to start like this, founders membership thing, and like say, hey, for a really low price and a firm handshake, we're going to try to make this as cheap as possible. But every dollar you guys are putting into the gym, I can show you, because it didn't exist before you became a member.
Right.
But that's kind of where we're at. We're hoping that, by hosting that meet, we'll get some local lifters that can come in and say, oh my gosh, we need this. This is perfect.
Yeah.
I was like, I know, right? Help us
Right.
out. Help us get started. But that's kind of where we're at. It's just a hope and a dream, man.
No, that's super cool.
One time in my life, I found myself homeless. It's kind of hard to talk about sometimes. I lived in a gym, quite literally. I didn't have the money to even join, but I met this gentleman named Carter. He's out of a little place in Cleveland, Tennessee. He owned a gym called the Fitness Factory. And the exchange was I would help clean up. I would help rack weights. I would help, whatever he needed to do. And there was always a couch for me to sit on and a warm place with electric. And so, kind of thinking back then, started from nothing, thought I want to do this. Found my way, sitting across heavy at Dynabody one day and said, man, I want to build a gym. And he said, well, I'll sell you the equipment when you can. And I promised that man that day I would. And it's kind of funny. This shirt I'm wearing now is, 10 years old, plus 10 years plus old, because it meant so much to me. Because when I went down there, and if you've ever met Heavy, he gives you shirts and sweatshirts, and that's just his thing. And what that man didn't know at that time is that sweatshirt he gave me was my entire winter wardrobe.
Wow.
That was literally all I had. And, like I said, 10 years later, we were able to go down there and get started. And so considering, this has already been a 10-year journey, a few more years won't hurt.
Oh, yeah. No. And you've got the passion, and people will see that passion, and all they got to do is meet you, and they're going to want to be a part of that world.
I sure hope so.
I have hope, and I have belief in you.
I appreciate it.
So having been through what you've been through and having started 2 gyms, like completely self-funded and right from scratch and scratching and clawing, what sort of advice would you give to somebody who's thinking about starting a gym?
It's funny. You kind of want to smart off and say, don't think about it. Don't do it. But it's
I don't think you'd say that, though.
But I wouldn't be that guy. So my honest advice is why. Why do you want to build a gym? You really got to think about that. It's not the how. People get so hung up on the how. It's mostly the why. Mm-hmm. So if you say, well, like when we started, I just wanted a place to work out with some friends. Truthfully, I was just really lonely. And, I remember a time in my life where lifting was all I had. Mm-hmm. And I wanted to make that space. We started with a monolift, a bench press, and I'm pretty sure we had a squat rack. I don't honestly remember at this point. And I said, okay, here we go. We have a gym. It's 4 pieces. It's the world's smallest gym, but we have a gym. Nice. So I would say to anyone wanting to start a gym, don't start out worrying about the how. Worry about the why. Everything will come into it. And if you are literally willing to pour everything you got into it, then find out where that level of accomplishment is. I can't personally right now, I can't say, okay, tomorrow this gym is going to be filled with brand new equipment, because I know that's not realistic. Mm-hmm. But I am going to have another bar here on Friday, and I'm going to have some weights here next Tuesday. So that's where we're starting. But my answer to that question really is just worry about the why. And if you don't have somebody in your corner that is going to help you find the answer to that question, I don't think it'll work.
Yeah, 100%. No, that's awesome. Yeah. Well, thank you for coming on. I really appreciate your time. This was really great. It was great to get to know you and your passion for this gym and the projects, and super cool. Is there anything else you'd like to tell people about Kaged Barbell before we end the?
I think we've said you can't put words to what Kaged Barbell is.
Right.
You got to come experience it. One of the things that I will say is this for anybody for Kaged Barbell. Everybody's welcome. Your first visit's free. If you ever find yourself in town, shoot us a message. We would love to have you come try it out.
Awesome. So thank you for coming on. I appreciate it. It's been great.
Thank you.
And we look forward to seeing what the new one looks like. It's going to be exciting.
Yeah, once we get everything put in place, I'd love to come back, have you come back down as our guest.
Oh yeah, definitely. So thank you again.
If you enjoyed this podcast, please hit the like button and subscribe to our channel for more great content.